I think my girlfriend might have been reborn. It's as if she realized I don't like her and am just toying with her emotions. And she started being exceptionally nice to my cheerful, sunny puppy dog like younger brother. Later, I saw her, under the influence of alcohol, kiss the corner of his mouth. I'm sorry I mistook you for someone else back then. I was so foolish in my past life, deceived by him. This life, let me spend my entire life making it up to you, okay? 1. This was the 7th time Crystal Fisher had stood me up recently. Standing outside the women's dormitory, enduring a torrential downpour that my umbrella couldn't fully shield me from, I called her. After 3 busy signals, Crystal Fisher finally answered. Sorry, I forgot there was a banquet tonight. Hearing her nonchalant voice, I clenched my phone, yet my tone remained gentle. Where are you? There was a moment of silence on the other end before she hung up. I sneered, quickened my pace, turned, and slipped into my luxury car. I sent a message to the manager of the bar she frequented. Sure enough, Crystal Fisher was there with Ethan Blackwood, partying with a group of their usual cronies. In the video the manager sent, the two of them were playing a push-up game as part of Truth or Dare. Crystal Fisher lay on the spacious sofa in the private room, letting Ethan Blackwood do push-ups over her. I floored the accelerator, and after reaching the bar, I pushed open the door and walked in. The atmosphere seemed to have reached its peak, with everyone catcalling for them to kiss. Seeing me enter, they all froze awkwardly on the spot. Regardless of how others saw me, the sucker, I only looked at Crystal Fisher and extended my hand to her. Come with me. Crystal Fisher frowned, her gaze softening slightly upon noticing the dampness on my suit. Isn't it just a banquet? What's the big deal? She grumbled as she walked towards me, but Ethan Blackwood grabbed her hand. Crystal, you're leaving already? Crystal? What kind of way is that to address her? He should clearly call her sister-in-law, because Crystal Fisher is my fiancée from an angle Crystal Fisher couldn't see. Ethan Blackwood shot me a provocative smile, then looked up at her pitifully. That silly woman Crystal Fisher instantly fell for it, completely forgetting about me, her legitimate fiancé. I'll take you out on the yacht tomorrow, okay? After pacifying Ethan Blackwood, she finally looked at me, her eyes instantly growing cold. Let's go. Maintaining the smile on my face, I proactively offered her my arm and then opened the car door for her. Crystal Fisher's expression was cold. She was chatting with Ethan Blackwood on her phone, looking as if she couldn't be bothered with me. Yet, I eagerly presented her with jewelry from her favorite designer, along with a new haute couture dress. Watching her eyes sparkle because of my gifts, I tucked her slightly messy bangs behind her ear. Do you like it? Crystal Fisher replied stiffly. No, but I didn't care at all. Because I don't like it either. I don't like her. On the way back from the banquet, I had the chauffeur take Crystal Fisher home first, then seemingly casually reminded her. Tomorrow our families are meeting to discuss the engagement. I'll pick you up at noon. Crystal Fisher immediately frowned and cursed under her breath. With important business to attend to, her yacht trip with Ethan Blackwood was off. I pretended not to notice her resistance and, with an impeccable demeanor, reminded her of what to be mindful of for tomorrow. But Crystal Fisher kicked the back of the chauffeur's seat and ordered coldly, "Take me to the Porphyry Club. We're getting engaged tomorrow, yet my fiancé is going to fool around with my brother tonight." But I smiled and nodded at the chauffeur, signaling him to follow Crystal Fisher's instructions, only because I didn't care about Crystal Fisher, but rather the power behind her. 2. Growing up, I was the model scion of a wealthy family, yet I wasn't as favored by my father as Ethan Blackwood, his illegitimate son. He and his mother, who had schemed her way from mistress to wife, were both adept at manipulative green tea tactics. After my mother's death, I had no choice but to latch on to the influential Fisher family. As long as this engagement contract existed, I could smoothly take control of the Blackwood family. Besides, it was better if she didn't like me. I could then divorce her smoothly later on. Humming a little tune, I gave the chauffeur an extra bonus to compensate for Crystal Fisher's rudeness to him. Back home, only after ensuring there wasn't a single issue with tomorrow's engagement party did I go to sleep peacefully. The next day at noon, the engagement party started on time, but Crystal Fisher didn't show up. Facing the numerous guests and both sets of parents, I maintained a perfect facade and made a casual excuse for Crystal Fisher. However, Mr. and Mrs. Fisher called me into the drawing room, looking remorseful. Sincere, that child Crystal is still immature, you'll need to be more patient with her. I readily agreed, assuring them I wouldn't take it to heart. After dealing with them, I received a message. I opened it to see, to my shock, a selfie sent by Ethan Blackwood. He was nonchalantly displaying the hickeys on his body and Crystal Fisher asleep in his arms. Although I had already braced myself when I saw Ethan Blackwood also hadn't appeared at the engagement party. The worst I had anticipated was them having a yacht party together. I never imagined they would do something like this. I kept taking deep breaths, trying to suppress the fury in my heart, but Ethan Blackwood's face, with its provocative smile, kept appearing before my eyes. Ever since we were young, he had always been trying to take what was mine. If he couldn't snatch it, he'd resort to dirty tricks. If tricks didn't work, he'd play pitiful. But I never bothered to stoop to his level, because I firmly believed that anything he could take from me through such means wasn't worth having. But this time, he had crossed my bottom line. I would make him pay the price he deserved. Standing on the balcony after calling the paparazzi, I sneered with a cigarette dangling from my lips. An illegitimate son of a wealthy family caught in bed with his prospective sister-in-law on the day of the engagement party, it would definitely be explosive news. Mr. Blackwood, quite the strategist. I glanced over coldly, only to see someone unexpected. A pretty face, a well-proportioned figure it was, to my surprise, my childhood friend, Victoria Summers.
Miss Summers? You're back from abroad?
She made a playful grimace and stepped forward to light my cigarette. I heard you were getting engaged today, so of course I had to come back. Didn't expect to walk into some gossip as soon as I arrived. I gave a wry smile, not expecting her to witness such a farce. But Victoria Summers urged me to open the video the paparazzi were live streaming, and she leaned in beside me, watching with keen interest. Her fragrance instantly wafted around my nostrils. I felt a bit uncomfortable and could only turn my attention to the video as well. Several media outlets scrambled upstairs, used the room key I had obtained through my connections, and kicked open the door.
"Ah, what are you doing?"
Get out under the incessant flashes of cameras. The two of them, panic-stricken, wrapped themselves in bedsheets, their disgraceful state completely exposed. I quickly covered Victoria Summers' eyes. Victoria Summers puffed her cheeks and pulled my hand away. Sincere, I'm not a child anymore, looking at her cute, pouting face. Just like when we were children, my anger completely dissipated. 3. Before long, many people knew about this. Although I hadn't let the paparazzi release it publicly yet, there were quite a few well-informed people. After this engagement party, which the hostess had missed, Ethan Blackwood started constantly calling his scheming mother. Because the paparazzi were demanding $15 million, Ethan Blackwood didn't have my capabilities. He couldn't even manage a branch office, so naturally, he didn't have much money on hand. Faced with this situation, to avoid ruining his image in our father's eyes, he and his mother had no choice but to sell off their real estate assets. Meanwhile, I went to Crystal Fisher and threw a stack of photos in her face. Crystal Fisher was initially pale, but seeing my cold expression, she became aggressive instead. So what? I never liked you anyway. If you can't accept it, then let's break up. She was clearly the one in the wrong, yet she was so brazenly defiant. I clenched my fists, constantly reminding myself to endure. After a sigh, I spoke, outwardly calm. $20 million. I bought all the negatives. She was stunned, her expression changing several times. Finally, she lowered her head, her voice as faint as a mosquito's buzz. Thank you. I shook my head. No matter what, I am your fiancé. Your presence at the wedding will be the best reward for me. Those fawning words almost made me bite my tongue, but the effect was remarkably good. Crystal Fisher looked up sharply, tears glistening in her eyes. Seeing her nod, I comforted her with a few more words. As I turned to leave the private room, I saw Victoria Summers standing quietly at the door. When she saw me come out, her composed face softened slightly. "What are you doing here?" Victoria Summers, however, avoided the question and started walking out first. "You like her that much?" I froze, not knowing what to say.
It's just a marriage alliance between wealthy families. Where does like or dislike come into it?
Crystal Fisher is a fool, which is why she's my optimal choice. After marrying her, the Fisher family's assets will eventually be mine for the taking. Seeing I didn't answer, Victoria Summers chuckled softly and turned to look at me. "Well then, I wish you a long and happy life together, Victoria Summers," and I parted on a somewhat sour note. However, Crystal Fisher had been much more behaved lately, not going out to fool around with those cronies of hers. She even fulfilled her duties as a fiancée at various banquets.
"Chris, why aren't you answering your phone?"
Seeing me with Crystal Fisher at a social gathering, Ethan Blackwood seized an opportunity to approach. He winked at Crystal Fisher, but she avoided his gaze. "Is there something you need?" Perhaps because Crystal Fisher had never been so cold to him before. Ethan Blackwood instantly looked embarrassed. I originally thought he was quite thick-skinned, otherwise how could he still have the nerve to talk to Crystal Fisher after not even buying back the photos of them being caught? But it turned out he wasn't that shameless after all. Unexpectedly, he didn't give up and put on a pleading expression. "Chris, I want to talk to you. There must be some misunderstanding between us." As he spoke, he glanced at me. I sneered inwardly but pretended to be magnanimous and released her arm, which I had been holding. "If you need, I can step aside." But Crystal Fisher shook her head and pulled me away. I turned my head and gave the fuming Ethan Blackwood a provocative smile. 4. Of course, Ethan Blackwood and his scheming mother were still quite resourceful. When I went home for dinner on the weekend, Diana Jennings, the former mistress who was now the wife, seemingly casually brought up my marriage to Crystal Fisher. Crystal Fisher didn't come to the engagement party that day. I was on pins and needles for a while. Hearing her words, my father's hand, which was picking up food, paused, and he looked at me. "Sincere, is everything all right between you and Crystal Fisher?" I smiled, shook my head, and was about to say something to dispel his suspicion. But the next second, Ethan Blackwood left his seat and knelt on the floor. "Father, I've wronged you, and I've wronged Big Bro." Although my father didn't know what had happened, his first instinct was to pull him up. Diana Jennings also feigned surprise, covering her mouth and exclaiming, "What are you doing? We're all family. Even if you did something wrong, wouldn't your Big Bro forgive you?" Seeing this, how could I not know what act they were putting on? It's just a dramatic performance, isn't it? As if I couldn't do the same. Ethan Blackwood pretended to be scared and dared not say what happened, but I spoke calmly. "If you're talking about you and Crystal Fisher, I already know." Hearing this, all three of them were stunned, their expressions priceless. The sheer amount of information hit my father hard. He stumbled back a step and sat down on his chair. Diana Jennings reacted the fastest, directly kicking her son in the back of his knee with her sharp high heel. Ethan Blackwood had just gotten up when he stumbled and knelt on the ground again. Seeing his face suddenly turn deathly pale, I sneered inwardly. Now that looked more like a self-inflicted injury to gain sympathy. After a long silence, my father sighed deeply. "In that case, why don't you let your brother have Crystal Fisher?" Of course, I knew what he was thinking. It didn't matter to him which of us Crystal Fisher married, so why not indulge his favored younger son? Could it be that this old fox of the business world couldn't see they were constantly playing tricks? It was simply because he thought I, the child whose mother died early, wasn't important for the first time ever in the Blackwood household. My face turned cold. "But the whole world knows Crystal Fisher as my fiancée." My father's eyes flickered, but he didn't change his mind. Truly ridiculous. I should have recognized my position in this family long ago. Yet I still foolishly hoped he would show me a shred of paternal affection. I took a deep breath and called Crystal Fisher. "Can we set the wedding for the 10th of next month?" There was a long pause on the other end. then a curt yes. I hung up the phone and turned to leave this house. After that day, the wedding preparations proceeded quickly. After Crystal Fisher's affirmation, even my father had nothing more to say. Crystal Fisher also started to meet with me to discuss the wedding arrangements. On the eve of the wedding, she arranged a candlelight dinner. Noticing she seemed somewhat dejected, I frowned. Did something happen? She shook her head, absent-mindedly cutting her steak, the knife and fork screeching against the plate. After a while, she finally spoke. I had a dream some time ago. In the dream, the person who saved me when I was little wasn't you. Isn't that funny? Though she said it was funny, there wasn't a trace of amusement in Crystal Fisher's eyes as she looked up and scrutinized me. My heart sank. What did she mean she had a dream? Considering her recent unusual behavior, everything made sense. Actually, Crystal Fisher used to have a decent relationship with me and kept her distance from Ethan Blackwood. But ever since she fell into the water again 2 months ago, she had been like a different person. It was hard not to think of something as outlandish as rebirth. But no matter how suspicious I was inwardly, my expression remained calm. So you think Ethan Blackwood saved you? 5. After a long silence, she nodded. Under the candlelight, Crystal Fisher's eyes were downcast, making her appear somewhat fragile. Tell me the truth, okay? But I just found it amusing and scoffed. Have you ever seen Ethan Blackwood get in the water? He can't even swim. How could he possibly have jumped in to save you? But Crystal Fisher argued for him, speaking eagerly. But he showed me medical records. The doctor said he developed aquaphobia due to psychological trauma. That was because his scheming mother, in an attempt to frame me, kicked her own son into the swimming pool. Besides, aquaphobia? Why not say he contracted rabies? I had nothing more to say to Crystal Fisher. Even if she believed Ethan Blackwood saved her, she shouldn't have cheated. Even considering my devotion to her all these years, she shouldn't have done such a thing at our engagement party. Let's just say he saved you then. Excuse me. Extremely agitated, I left my seat, went to the corridor, and lit a cigarette. Not long after, Ethan Blackwood appeared at the end of the hallway holding flowers and then walked into the private room Crystal Fisher had booked. He didn't see me, and I'm no saint, so I walked over and quietly watched them through the ajar door. Inside, the cliché drama of the man explaining and the woman not listening was playing out. Ethan Blackwood knelt on one knee at her feet, gazing at her affectionately. Crystal Fisher remained silent, her expression gradually softening. Seeing this, Ethan Blackwood quickly got up and hugged her, and Crystal Fisher kissed the corner of his mouth. Ethan, I mistook you for someone else. I will make it up to you. Make it up to him? While being my fiancé, she's going to compensate him? I just felt disgusted. But the wedding was imminent, so I could only suppress the churning in my stomach and pretend to leave as if nothing had happened. To avoid a repeat of the engagement party incident, I hired a professional team to watch Crystal Fisher for the wedding. Only when we walked down the aisle together into the wedding hall did I finally breathe a sigh of relief. On the stage, the officiant kindly asked if she was willing to marry me. Below were our friends and relatives. Everything seemed fantastically perfect. Crystal Fisher said softly, I do. I took out the ring, my hand trembling slightly with excitement. Finally, I could take smooth control of Blackwood Corporation. But just as I was about to slip the ring onto her ring finger, someone knocked it out of my hand. Amidst the uproar from the guests, Ethan Blackwood appeared between us, panting, and tightly gripped Crystal Fisher's hand. Chris, all I want is you. You and my brother are just in a marriage of convenience. Why not follow your heart and marry me? Crystal Fisher looked hesitant but didn't pull her hand away from Ethan Blackwood's. Why was he here? I had clearly instructed security in advance. It was impossible for him to get past them and be here. Realizing something, I turned to look at my father and Diana Jennings. Diana Jennings had a beaming smile on her face, while my father avoided my gaze. Things having come to this, what was there left for me not to understand? Mr. and Mrs. Fisher also turned to converse with my father, their faces even holding hypocritical smiles. Switching grooms on the wedding day. Where did that leave my dignity? My face darkened, and I snatched the microphone from the officiant. "Alistair Blackwood, are you sure you won't regret this?" Hearing this, my father instantly flew into a rage, jumping up and cursing me. "Is that how you talk to your old man? I'm telling you right now, the marriage contract between the Blackwood and Fisher families will be fulfilled by your younger brother very well. Did you think I didn't have a backup plan?" 6. I clapped my hands, and immediately bedroom photos of Ethan Blackwood and Crystal Fisher appeared on the large wedding screen. The MC, who was waiting on the side, quickly took the microphone and began to narrate with passionate eloquence. "These are the photos our Mr. Sincere Blackwood bought from the paparazzi for $20 million, photos of the fiancé and the younger brother in a compromising position on the very day of the engagement ceremony. Lost in their passion, everyone. Take a good look, this wedding gift for them is truly precious." Crystal Fisher's face instantly turned deathly pale. She questioned me with reddened eyes. "Didn't you say that if I came to the wedding?" Halfway through, she also realized my condition was simply to get married, but she couldn't even manage that. Ethan Blackwood panicked, roaring for them to turn off the projector, but no one listened. The guests, enjoying the drama, weren't about to let it stop. Some even jeered for them to put on a live show. Seeing the Fisher and Blackwood families become a laughingstock, my father trembled with anger and walked onto the stage, intending to slap me. "You scoundrel, how could you reveal such a thing?" I directly grabbed his wrist and sneered. "They could do it, but I can't talk about it." He was so angry his face turned red and his neck veins bulged, pointing at me and stammering, You, for a long time." Finally, he thought of a way to deal with me. "From today onwards, I'm kicking you out of the company. Don't even think about touching a single penny of it." I released his hand, feeling no ripple of emotion in my heart as I faced this man who was once family. "Then we'll see about that." That very evening, I immediately convened a shareholders' meeting. After so many years of lying low, I had already bought off many people. Plus, after getting married, I would receive the shares my mother left me, which was enough for me to control Blackwood Corporation. I had long been prepared for the possibility of not marrying Crystal Fisher. After the wedding fiasco, I went and registered my marriage with Victoria Summers. Fortunately, we had some childhood affection, and she was willing to help me through this difficult time. The next day, when Ethan Blackwood swaggered into the company, he was stopped by security. Immediately, he called over my father and Diana Jennings. My father came upstairs, furious, and slammed his palm on my desk. "Who allowed you to come to the company?" "I've already decided to give the company to Ethan. Get out." I cleaned my ear, yawned, and then slowly asked him, "Why didn't you answer your phone last night?" My father was stunned, his expression softening a bit. "You brat, begging won't do you any good. I've already decided." Did he think I was concerned about him? Truly amusing. If this former CEO had answered his phone last night, he would have known he'd already been dismissed. Diana Jennings still had that beaming look. Clearly, she had put in a lot of effort last night for Ethan Blackwood's CEO position, so wasn't it her time to be smug now? "Sincere, dear, don't talk to your father like that," I sneered, interrupting her. "Do you think I don't know what tricks you used back then? I don't mind putting your affairs on the big screen too, for the entire high society circle to admire." After saying that, without even looking at them, I had security escort them out. With my deliberate pushing, the recording of the wedding day circulated, and Ethan Blackwood and Crystal Fisher became quite infamous. Netizens even started boycotting Blackwood and Fisher products. But after I released the news that I had taken over Blackwood Corporation, its reputation soared, while Fisher stocks plummeted alarmingly. Crystal Fisher couldn't stand the gossip and directly left the country. Someone even dug up that Diana Jennings was a mistress who had schemed her way up. Now the three of them were utterly disgraced, and even my father's old friends no longer associated with him. 7. I was riding a wave of success with endless business banquets. Invited to a charity gala, I saw Victoria Summers. Although we were married, we hadn't publicly acknowledged each other yet, because we had agreed it was just a help, and I didn't want to hold her back. Just as I was about to go over and greet her, I saw a familiar profile, and a chill ran down my spine. Victoria Summers was arm in arm with Ethan Blackwood, talking to him and laughing very happily. We were childhood sweethearts, she wouldn't betray me. Thinking this, I managed to steady my emotions and, using others as cover, moved towards them. However, Ethan Blackwood noticed me and turned to Victoria Summers with a pitiful expression. "Miss Vicky, you know I've been involved in that kind of scandal." But Victoria Summers didn't seem to care at all, tilting her head up and smiling at him. "You're still young. Unlike some people who are deep schemers, it's normal for you to be plotted against. I admit I'm a deep schemer. If I weren't, it's hard to say if I could have survived under Diana Jennings's clutches for so long. But I thought we were at least friends." She clearly knew how Ethan Blackwood framed me, so why was she associating with him? I didn't care when my father favored Ethan Blackwood, nor when Crystal Fisher cheated on me with him. But I couldn't accept Victoria Summers choosing him too. In the past, I would have pondered her motives for marrying me, but right now, I just wanted to get incredibly drunk. At midnight, when my assistant brought me home, I saw Victoria Summers sitting on the sofa, waiting for me. Seeing I was back, she immediately came over with a smile. "Look what I brought back for you, Tada. An original work by the master you admire most." It was the painting auctioned at the charity gala, and one of the reasons I went. Looking at that innocent and radiant face, I forced a smile. "Thanks, Vicky." When I woke up the next morning and walked out of the bedroom, I saw Victoria Summers bustling about. "Come quickly and have some porridge. Is your stomach feeling upset?" She fluttered around me, chattering like a joyful little bird, showing no sign that she would refer to me as some people. After a moment of silence, I forced myself to make conversation with her. I'll just pretend I don't know. After all, this current atmosphere is precious to me. After a busy morning at the company, I received Ethan Blackwood's bills. My father always favored his younger son. His bills were sent directly to the company's finance department. Just as I was about to instruct finance to stop paying his bills, I keenly noticed that the items on the bill were all women's bags and dresses. After a moment's thought, I sent a message to Victoria Summers, and her reply was that she was out shopping. The answer seemed obvious. I was so angry I laughed. If that's the case, then I have even more reason to cancel Ethan Blackwood's card. Using my money to woo my wife? Dream on. During my lunch break, I was still angry, but I received a food delivery from Victoria Summers. Delivery from a 5-star restaurant, a privately customized menu, quite expensive, but I ate absent-mindedly, constantly thinking of Victoria Summers' face. Indeed, women are all liars. 8. After canceling Ethan Blackwood's card, the private investigator kept sending me updates. It was either Diana Jennings selling her jewelry in bags at low prices, or Ethan Blackwood borrowing money from various platforms. Perhaps because they hadn't managed to raise enough money quickly enough last time to buy back the scandalous photos of Ethan and Crystal. They had learned their lesson. This time they were going all out, even borrowing money to please Victoria Summers. It was nothing more than wanting to latch onto the influential Summers family to make a comeback. But they overlooked my father, Alistair Blackwood. He had just honorably retired and was utterly bored. So I deliberately found a group of beautiful women to flirtatiously pursue him like a swarm of butterflies and bees. By the time Diana Jennings and Ethan Blackwood realized what was happening, a woman with a bulging belly had already made her entrance into the household. This was Mia. At that time, I also returned to the Blackwood mansion. With just a slight show of weakness, my father relented. Compared to the current Ethan Blackwood, who constantly asked him for money, I, his son who was resourceful in business, was clearly more to his liking. So, after Diana Jennings and Ethan Blackwood sold their property and returned home, they saw me and Mia accompanying Alistair Blackwood at the dining table, looking as harmonious as a family of 3 number 4. Diana Jennings could still maintain a calm facade, but Ethan Blackwood instantly started shouting. "Father, why did you let him come back? And who is this woman?" Alistair Blackwood valued his pride immensely. How could he tolerate his younger son disobeying him? He slammed the table, fuming and glaring. "He's your older brother and she's your young stepmother. Watch your tone." Ethan Blackwood looked at the young stepmother, who wasn't much older than him, and stood there stunned. He probably never imagined his father was this kind of person. Diana Jennings' eyes reddened, but she still forced a smile. "Sis is here, old Lynn. Why didn't you tell me beforehand?" I coughed lightly, and Mia immediately stroked her belly. Her voice was soft and delicate, intentionally showing off. "It's not old Lynn's fault. I haven't been feeling well, and this belly is getting noticeably bigger. I need someone to take care of me." Alistair Blackwood, having a child late in life, couldn't help but add a few words. "Diana, you must take good care of Mia's child. That large downtown apartment you've always wanted, it's yours." Mia immediately sidled up, tugging at Alistair Blackwood's sleeve coquettishly. "I want one too," seeing Diana Jennings's and Ethan Blackwood's faces turn livid with anger. I immediately smiled and took my leave. When I got home, unexpectedly, Victoria Summers was there too. She was wearing a stunning red dress, lightly sipping red wine. Noticing I was home, she stumbled and threw herself into my arms. Victoria Summers looked up at me, her eyes glistening, a faint blush appearing on her usually fair face. "Sincere, we've been married for so long. Are you going to make me live like a widow forever?" I swallowed hard, trying to remain calm. "Vicky, this isn't right." I pushed her away, but she tenaciously hugged me again. "What's not right about it? Don't you like me?" Being stared at by a stunningly beautiful girl with tearful eyes even a saint couldn't resist, but I couldn't take advantage of her. Seeing I hadn't spoken for a long time, she pouted. "I must be the biggest fool in the world. I've liked you for so many years, yet I haven't gotten even a tiny bit of response." Hearing this, I froze, followed by immense joy. Seeing she was about to turn and leave, I quickly hugged her. "I like you too, really 9. Knowing that we liked each other, I felt like I was walking on air. But Victoria Summers' private interactions with Ethan Blackwood still felt like a thorn in my side. Finally, I couldn't help but ask. But Victoria Summers instantly burst into peals of laughter, refusing to get up from my embrace. "Just because of something like that, you were going to refuse me when I threw myself at you?" I was a bit bewildered. Her reaction was indeed somewhat strange. I had originally prepared for her to fly into a rage out of embarrassment, but I didn't expect her to react as if she was anticipating something interesting. She snuggled lazily in my arms and called Ethan Blackwood. "My family wants to meet you." "Yes, book the best restaurant, bring the best gift. See you this afternoon." Listening to their conversation, my hands holding Victoria Summers couldn't help but tighten. After hanging up, she winked at me. "When dealing with a social climber like him, don't you think the best way is to strike when he thinks he's about to get everything?" Indeed. But remembering what she said that day, I still feigned a sigh. But someone is young, unlike certain deep schemers. Victoria Summers playfully punched me. "If I didn't belittle you, would he trust me? Besides, what's wrong with being a deep schemer? I love the way you plot against others." I laughed out loud and couldn't help but kiss that talkative little mouth. After we got ready, Victoria Summers pulled me to the restaurant Ethan Blackwood had booked. Ethan Blackwood was dressed to the nines. Seeing Victoria Summers and me appear together, his smile froze on his face. Victoria Summers let go of my hand and walked over to greet him. Ethan Blackwood was instantly bewildered. After glancing at my expression, he leaned close to Victoria Summers' ear. "Vicky, what's going on?" A faint smile playing on her lips, Victoria Summers pulled me over again. "Didn't I say my family wanted to meet you?" He nodded, straightened his back, and looked at me with increased disdain in his eyes. I could guess what he was thinking. So what if we were childhood sweethearts? He could easily win over any woman by my side. But the next second, Victoria Summers ruthlessly shattered his fantasy. She said, "Let me introduce you. This is my husband." How is a husband not family? I smiled and put my arm around Victoria Summers' waist. my sarcasm turned up to the maximum. Ethan Blackwood trembled with anger, glaring at Victoria Summers. "You lied to me? I spent so much money on you, how could you lie to me?" Seeing him about to rush forward and hit Victoria Summers, I ruthlessly kicked him in the stomach. As he lay on the ground trying to ease the pain, I fiercely pinned him down. "Ethan Blackwood, I advise you to think clearly about the consequences. The Summers family is not to be trifled with." Hearing this, he stopped struggling. Seeing he had some sense, I sneered and released him. Who knew he would immediately start playing pitiful? What a chameleon.
"Vicky, I lost my head just now. Tell me, none of this is true, right?"
Meeting Ethan Blackwood's expectant gaze, Victoria Summers nonchalantly shook her head. "That's right, I lied to you. Who asked you to bully my Sincere?" Ethan Blackwood took 2 steps forward, trying to grab Victoria Summers' hand, but I stopped him. He still didn't give up, begging with a woeful face. "Vicky, I know you're not short of money. Can you please return the things I gave you? I'm begging you." Victoria Summers chuckled, clearly not taking his words to heart. "Although I never said Sincere and I were married, I did tell you we were dating. I'll just consider these gifts as a congratulatory present from a younger brother to his sister-in-law." Ethan Blackwood's face instantly darkened. "You'll regret this." I protected Victoria Summers as we walked out, responding nonchalantly. "We'll see about that." 10. Although I acted indifferent on the surface, I immediately called that resourceful Mia. That night, a major incident occurred at the Blackwood mansion. When I rushed to the hospital, I heard that soft, delicate voice crying, "Alistair, it was Ethan who pushed me, my baby. It was a boy." My father tightly held the woman's hand, constantly comforting her softly. Diana Jennings stood to the side, distraught, her face as pale as a sheet, yet still trying to defend her son. "Sis, I know you're devastated about the baby, but how can you prove it was Ethan who pushed you?" Hearing this, Mia cried even more sorrowfully. "Just yesterday I went to the hospital for a checkup. Alistair and I had just found out it was a boy. If it wasn't your son, who else would have done it?" The implication in her words was clear. My father's face instantly darkened. I walked into the hospital room at the opportune moment, and Diana Jennings immediately pointed at me. "Looking at it this way, Sincere is more suspicious, isn't he? How can you suspect my son?" My father looked at her in shock, as if seeing her for the first time.
"Diana, I've seen Sincere's behavior all these years."
"How can you slander him? Didn't you say you'd treat him like your own son?" But I laughed inwardly. For so many years, Diana Jennings had pretended to be a good stepmother. I didn't expect her true colors to be revealed at this moment. On the surface, however, I frowned as if I had been wronged and kindly reminded my father, "Dad, didn't we install security cameras in the old mansion? We can just check the footage, can't we?" Under Diana Jennings' disbelieving gaze, I took my father's phone and pulled up the surveillance footage. The camera at the top of the stairs showed it clearly. After Mia said something to him, Ethan Blackwood suddenly rushed towards Mia. Clack, the phone fell to the ground with a loud noise. Diana Jennings, panting heavily, kicked the phone hard twice. Smack this time, it was the sound of my father's palm hitting her face. My father was seething with rage, wishing he could slap her again. "You've disappointed me too much. Where's Ethan? Get him here." Diana Jennings' lips trembled a few times, unwilling to say. She probably wanted to wait until my father calmed down, but how could I let this opportunity slip? After I winked at Mia, she burst into loud sobs again. "Alistair, call the police. You have to make the person who harmed our child pay the price." Seeing my father frown, I quickly interjected, "We're all family. How can we call the police?" Diana Jennings's gloomy face suddenly lit up with hope. I raised an eyebrow and delivered the final blow. "Why not send him to a strict boarding school abroad for a while? Consider it penance for what happened to Mia's child." Seeing me offer a way out, my father nodded. Although Ethan Blackwood avoided jail time, he was in my hands, and suffering was inevitable. Besides, making someone disappear abroad seems like a rather easy thing to do. Amidst Diana Jennings' tearful pleas, I casually walked out of the hospital room. Ethan Blackwood is finished. Shouldn't I celebrate properly with my wife? The end. For 3 years after I was paralyzed, my CEO wife, Victoria Johnson, took care of me without ever leaving my side. When I was thirsty, she'd cool the water to the perfect temperature before bringing it to my lips. Knowing I liked to be clean, she would meticulously wash my body. Because of my weak constitution, she would give me physical therapy and massages, enduring her own tendinitis. Everyone said I was holding her back, that the untouchable beauty of the Johnson Group was inexplicably devoted to me. She didn't even go see her first love, the one that got away, when he was critically ill. After 3 years of rehabilitation, I finally stood on my own 2 feet again. My wife, who always presented a cold and elegant face to the world, actually smiled. She paid a fortune at auction for a legendary centennial blood ginseng to replenish my vitality. But I wasn't grateful. Instead, in front of all our friends and family, I demanded a divorce. Everyone was stunned. My wife's eyes reddened, and she bit her lip. "You are the man I, Victoria Johnson, chose. You will not leave me, unless I die." Hearing this, I sneered and shoved her down the stairs. "You want to die? Then let me help you." Unfortunately, the stairs weren't that high. After a thorough checkup revealed no injuries, our worried friends and family brought her to a hospital room. "Sincere, what the hell has gotten into you?" Victoria frowned at me, her tone furious. "Even if you're upset about something, we're a married couple, we can communicate. What is this nonsense about divorce?" Our friends and family were just as confused. Director Helen from the orphanage where I grew up rushed to take Victoria's hand. "Vicky, please don't be upset. We've all seen your devotion these past 3 years. How could Sincere possibly divorce you?" "Mama Helen, I'm serious. I want a divorce." Seeing the grave look on my face, the director was torn, stamping her foot in anxiety. Victoria's chest heaved with anger, her face flushing red. "Sincere Smith, I'm getting angry. What do you think marriage is, a game of playing house? Are you upset because I haven't been here to keep you company for the last 2 days? I can explain. I postponed a shareholder meeting and went to a remote monastery to find a special dietary recipe for you." I shook my head, cutting her off as I pulled out a divorce agreement. "No need to explain. Right now, all I want is a divorce. Just sign it." "Don't you dare sign it." Director Helen snatched the papers from my hand. "Sincere, have you lost your mind? Vicky is so busy with work, yet she still cooked for you and brought it to the hospital every single day. Where else would you find a wife this good? Don't you do something in a fit of pique that you'll regret." I lowered my gaze, avoiding the director's pained eyes. "She is wonderful, but I don't love her anymore. I am set on this divorce." "You don't love her?" Victoria stared at me, her eyes misting over. "When we got married, you said you would love me for a lifetime. It's only been 4 years, have you forgotten? Is it because of Ethan? He was just my first love. I let him go a long time ago. You are the one I truly love." Ethan Moore was the one that got away for Victoria. 3 years ago, Ethan fell ill and returned to the country for treatment. At that time, Victoria and I were newlyweds. To avoid any suspicion, she never once went to visit him. After I was paralyzed, I had even considered setting them free to be together. But every time I brought it up, I would fall silent under Victoria's furious glare. As Victoria spoke, her voice became thick with emotion. "Even when he was on his deathbed, I was still at the auction house, fighting to get that blood ginseng for you. Isn't it obvious who is more important to me?" My gaze swept over the blood ginseng on the bedside table. I knew she wasn't lying. She had put a lot of thought into maximizing its value. Not only did she keep it herself, but she was superstitious enough to say it had to be consumed at an auspicious time. My thoughts snapped back to the present. I spoke faintly. "Thank you for your devotion, but I no longer have any feelings for you. You're lying." Victoria grabbed my hand, her voice trembling. "That time I flew to an overseas auction with a stomachache, you were worried sick. You said the person you owed the most to in this life was me. Don't you remember?" "I don't remember clearly." I slowly pulled my hand away and put the divorce papers down. "Sign it. From now on, we'll go our separate ways and wish each other well." "I won't sign. I don't agree." Victoria's voice was hoarse, but her tone was unyielding. Let me tell you something, Sincere Smith. In my dictionary there is no divorce, only widowhood. She stared at me defiantly, tears falling onto the divorce agreement, blurring the ink into dark smudges. The room fell silent. Finally, my good friend from the orphanage, Jack, cleared his throat and stood up. Big S, we all know you value your wife more than your own life. Is there something you're being forced to do? Meeting Victoria's hopeful gaze, I shook my head. No, I just don't want to be with her anymore. Director Helen couldn't hold back any longer. She came forward and took both our hands. Sincere, I watched the two of you get together. Back then, you were a struggling puppeteer, barely making ends meet, yet you had the wild idea of pursuing Vicky. How many people laughed at you for punching way above your weight? But not only did Vicky not ask for a dowry, she indulged you and let you hold the wedding at our orphanage. Put yourself in her shoes. What other wife would do that when Vicky had a stomachache in the middle of the night, you ran barefoot to 3 different pharmacies? When she was quarantined on a business trip abroad, you stormed into the quarantine zone like a madman to be with her. Have you forgotten all that? I remember it all, I said, exhaling slowly. And that's precisely why I want a divorce. Enough, my father-in-law. Mr. Johnson clutched his chest, his expression filled with resentment. My daughter was willing to cut ties with us just to marry you, and this is what she gets in return? A divorce? The Johnson family really picked a fine son-in-law. I nodded, my face impassive. Once we're divorced, you can find her a better one. As the standoff continued, the door to the room was thrown open. Victoria's best friend, Louise Hunter, stormed in, her tactical vest still faintly smelling of cordite. Sincere, you rat, Louise slapped me hard across the face, then kicked me. Victoria is such a proud woman, and for the last 3 years, she's basically been your full-time nurse. Now that you're better, you want a divorce? Are you even human? Louise was a war correspondent and had always thought I wasn't good enough for Victoria. She'd even threatened to knock me out and ship me off to a war zone. As she put it, if you can't solve the problem, get rid of the person causing it. I stumbled back a few steps and silently wiped the blood from the corner of my mouth. Victoria jumped out of bed and stood in front of Louise. He's just recovered. What if you hurt him? Louise rolled her eyes in frustration. He's treating you like this and you're still protecting him? Have you lost your mind? Victoria bit her lip and looked at me, her voice trembling, almost pleading. Sincere, can we please stop this? Whatever I did wrong, I'll change. You like my hair short, don't you? I'll cut it as soon as we get home, okay? You said you don't want to work in an office, that you only love your puppets. From now on, we'll do whatever you want, all right? No need to change. I picked up my bag and gave the divorce papers on the bed one last deep look. It's best if you're just yourself. Let me know when you've signed. Be myself? Victoria whispered with a bitter laugh. You were the one who said you'd protect me for a lifetime, and now you're the one telling me to be myself. The people around us couldn't stand it anymore, indignantly accusing me of being irresponsible. But I had no intention of explaining. I just turned and left. The next day, I returned to the puppet theater and went to the props warehouse I hadn't seen in years. Before I met Victoria, I was a puppeteer, and a pretty skilled one at that. But Victoria said I was better suited to wearing a suit and sitting in an office, so I packed away my puppets and went to work for the Johnson Group, just as she wished. I truly loved her back then. She was my whole world. But it's also true that I want a divorce now. As I was moving the dusty puppets, ready to leave, I heard a few actors from the troupe chatting outside. He married the Johnson heiress, and now he's making a fuss about divorce. Did playing with puppets make him stupid? I know, right? He was in such a bad state, and she still took care of him for 3 years. Not long ago, she even bought that $1 million blood ginseng for him. The moment he's better, he turns his back on her. What a tragedy, what a cold-hearted, ungrateful snake. No wonder they say men stop cherishing what they have once they get it. He'll be crawling back to her through hell and high water, you'll see. I pushed the door open and met the awkward and disgusted gazes of those actors. Who said my husband is divorcing me? Watch your mouths. I turned to see Victoria, arms crossed, leaning against the wall and staring coldly at the two actors. Under Victoria's intimidating presence, the actors didn't dare say another word, shrinking back and hurrying away. I carried on, moving my puppets into the courtyard. Victoria followed me. "Hubby," Victoria's cool gaze fell on me, instantly melting into deep affection. "Don't be angry with me anymore. I made your favorite spicy chicken. Come home and eat with me, okay?" The decisive, powerful head of the Johnson Group, speaking in such a coaxing tone, left the theater staff stunned, but my face remained unmoved as I continued to wipe down my puppets. "I know I have a short temper and sometimes I've wronged you. I'll make it up to you from now on," Victoria said, pulling out 2 plane tickets. "These are for a honeymoon trip to Santorini. You were always so disappointed that I caught a bad cold during our first honeymoon. Let's go again and do it right." The younger members of the troupe gasped with envy. "Oh my God, the Queen bowing down for love, it's so heart-melting. Miss Johnson spoils her husband so much. She's rich, beautiful, and so gentle and considerate. I couldn't even dream of something like this." Amid the crowd's teasing calls of hug her, I tore the tickets to shreds without a moment's hesitation. "Instead of wasting time planning trips, you should sign the divorce papers." Victoria's nose stung. She turned away and took a deep breath, but tears streamed down her face. "Hubby, what's wrong with you? Why do you have to divorce me?" The onlookers were outraged, all speaking up for Victoria. "What the hell is wrong with this guy? What a rat, not even cherishing a wife this good. What a drama queen. He'll be crying his eyes out when he finally pushes her away." I finished arranging the puppets, didn't even glance at Victoria, and walked straight towards the gate. As I passed her, Victoria stared into my eyes, her voice choked with tears. "Sincere, you do still love me, right?" I didn't answer. I just left in silence. 2 days later, I received a sudden call from Director Helen. "Come quickly, something's happened to Vicky." When I arrived at the hospital, Victoria was lying weakly in a hospital bed. The atmosphere was heavy. The moment Louise saw me, her eyes turned red with rage. "This is all your fault, you beast. If it wasn't for that stupid secret recipe for your damn blood ginseng, Victoria wouldn't have gone to that remote monastery and collapsed in the mountains. Do you have any idea that the doctors just found out she has leukemia? When I think about how she was already sick while listening to your crap, I just want to beat you to death, blood ginseng. Leukemia." I gave the blood ginseng on the bedside table a meaningful look. So, she hadn't given up yet. "Lou, it's not his fault." Victoria quickly pulled Louise back, giving me a pitiful smile. "You were sick before, and now I'm sick. We're even. Doesn't that make us a perfect match? For my sake as a fellow patient, Sincere, will you forgive me?" Before I could speak, the attending physician walked in with a lab report. "Ms. Johnson, the type of leukemia you have can currently only be treated with a bone marrow transplant. But the good news is we've found a successful match for a donor. That person is—" As everyone looked on with hope, the doctor's eyes landed on me. "Mr. Smith." Hearing this news, everyone in the room breathed a sigh of relief. Even the hostility in Louise's eyes faded. Director Helen wiped away tears, her hands clasped in prayer. "Thank God. Vicky can be saved. Sincere, you can't throw any more tantrums. You have to take good care of Vicky now." I stared at Victoria's pale face and calmly uttered one sentence: "I won't donate." The room fell deathly silent. Victoria looked at me in disbelief. "Hubby, you—" Louise lunged at me, fists raised. "You heartless, ungrateful snake, you won't even save your own wife. What kind of man are you?" The doctor was also stunned. "Mr. Smith, bone marrow transplants are very safe nowadays, and with proper recovery they don't harm your body." I shook my head and said flatly, "We're about to get divorced. Once we are, we'll be strangers. I have no obligation to donate." Director Helen's face darkened, and she pointed a finger at my nose and started yelling. "Sincere, are you speaking like a human being? When you were rushed to the emergency room, who stood by the door for 3 days and 3 nights? When you couldn't take care of yourself, Who wasn't afraid of the filth and cleaned your body over and over again? If you go through with this divorce, don't you ever step foot in the orphanage again." Victoria's eyes were filled with disappointment, as if she were truly seeing me for the first time. "So that's how it is. In your heart, I'm just a stranger now. You want me to sign, don't you?" She closed her eyes, took a deep breath, and her tone turned cold. "Fine. Agree to donate your bone marrow, and I'll sign. We'll go our separate ways and have nothing more to do with each other." I looked at her with a complex expression and nodded. "Fine." As soon as I walked out of the hospital, Jack sent me a message. "Big S, I got everything." I never would have guessed. I was wrong about you. I closed my phone and let out a long breath. The whole truth was finally about to come out. The day of the bone marrow transplant arrived quickly. As soon as I got to the hospital, Louise shoved a soup tureen into my hands with a sour look. "Eat this damn blood ginseng so you don't die on the operating table and blame us." Holding the tureen, the last shred of hesitation in my heart vanished. Seeing me eat every last drop, Victoria seemed to relax slightly. After I put the bowl down, Louise sneered and handed me a divorce agreement. I wrote up a new one. "Sincere, you've hurt Victoria deeply. The least I can do is protect her money. So, you'll walk away with nothing. If you have no problem with that, sign it and get into the operating room." I took it, glanced at it, then looked up at everyone and said slowly, "Who says she's blameless? She cheated on me. She's the one who should walk away with nothing." The air seemed to freeze. Victoria's lips trembled with rage. "Are you insane? On what grounds do you say I cheated?" I gave a cold smile and pointed to the soup tureen. "That blood ginseng is the fox's tail you let slip." Everyone gave me a strange look. Louise looked at me as if I were an idiot. "Sincere, are you sick in the head? Victoria bought that blood ginseng for you. What the hell does it have to do with cheating? If you keep slandering her, believe me, I'll kill you." I looked at Victoria, whose expression had subtly changed, my gaze deep. "This blood ginseng is worth millions. You must have consulted a traditional medicine expert. They must have told you that its effects are to generate muscle and blood, and that it's completely useless for paralysis caused by nerve damage like mine. So, why did you insist on buying it?" Hearing my words, people around us started whispering. I didn't know there was so much to consider when buying supplements. But if the blood ginseng was useless, why did Vicky go to so much trouble to buy it? Victoria heard me, but she just shook her head with a look of disappointment. "Is that your reason for suspecting me of cheating? Sincere, you're pathetic. I don't need to know the specific medicinal effects of blood ginseng. I just need to know that it's good for your body. Besides, doesn't having abundant energy and blood also nourish the nerves?" Her confident response made everyone nod, and they looked at me with suspicion. I was prepared. I pulled a stack of photos from my pocket and threw them on the table. "As it happens, to prevent you from being scammed, I had someone investigate the people you've been in contact with recently. Unexpectedly, I discovered a few things." At this point, I stared into Victoria's eyes and said, word for word, "Room 305 on the 3rd floor. Every day after you came to see me, you would go there and stay for a very long time. And in that room is Ethan Moore, correct?" The photos all showed Victoria entering room 305 at different times. As soon as I finished, Victoria glared at me furiously. "You investigated me?" I pushed one photo after another in front of her. "Your first love, coincidentally in the same hospital as me. Every time you go to see him, you stay for 2 hours without coming out. What do you have to say about that?" In the last half-month alone, there were over a dozen photos. The pictures clearly showed Victoria with a radiant smile on her face before entering the room. It was a stark contrast to the cold expression she wore every time she came to see me. But Victoria wasn't flustered at all. Instead, she coolly tossed the photos aside. "What's wrong with me visiting him? Ethan is my friend, and he's seriously ill. Since I'm at the hospital often, it's only right that I stop by to see him. Ethan has developed depression from his long illness. I'm keeping him company, chatting with him to lift his spirits. Isn't it normal for that to take some time? You conclude I'm cheating just because I'm making a normal visit? Sincere, are you that insecure? How did these 3 years warp your mind into something so dark? Beside her, Louise's face showed contempt.
Lying in bed all day is all you can do? Suspect your wife of cheating?
Apologize to Victoria right now. Don't make me lose all respect for you, Director. Helen rubbed her forehead, advising me with a headache-inducing tone. Don't be so suspicious. How can you accuse Vicky based on something so baseless? I didn't argue. I just took out my phone and opened up a social media feed. Who said it's baseless? Didn't you post photos together? On the screen, one intimate photo of Victoria and Ethan after another scrolled by. There were pictures of them huddled together, making funny faces. There was one of Victoria wrapping her arms around Ethan's neck from behind, tilting her head and smiling. And there was a close-up of their fingers forming a complete heart, the matching promise rings on their knuckles glinting. Interestingly, all these photos were set to be visible only to Ethan. That seems a bit too intimate. There should be boundaries, even between friends. She's married. Why is Victoria wearing matching rings with someone else? No wonder Sincere is so angry. Seeing her friends and family whispering and the looks in their eyes changing, Victoria quickly stepped forward. Sincere, don't mislead everyone with these out-of-context photos. I already told you, Ethan has severe depression, even suicidal tendencies. His therapist asked me to cooperate with his requests, to help him find his will to live. That's why I took those pictures with him. You even said yourself the photos were only visible to Ethan. It was just a method I was using to help with his therapy. Victoria looked aggrieved, her voice trembling with emotion. Sincere, how can your mind be so filthy? Louise crossed her arms and sneered at me. What century are you living in? Who says a married woman can't have male friends? Victoria was just being kind and helping with his therapy. Can't you be a little more sophisticated? My father-in-law slammed the table. I know my daughter's character. She would never do something like this. If there was something between her and that Ethan, you would have never even had a chance. Understand, seeing the commotion, many other patients' families gathered around. Someone even started a live stream of the drama. And with the explanations from Victoria and the others, the tide of public opinion turned again. She married a guy who's basically a gold digger, and he's slandering her with cheating rumors. This is why women from wealthy families shouldn't marry down. I heard this rat was paralyzed for 3 years, completely dependent on her care. Now he's turning on her and wants a divorce to get his hands on her assets. A flood of accusations washed over the comments section, threatening to drown me. But I remained non-committal, and under Victoria's faintly triumphant gaze, I pulled out my trump card. You say my mind is filthy? Then let's see how filthy this video is. Jack pushed a large screen forward from the crowd, and I mirrored my phone to it. On the screen, Victoria was dressed as a bunny girl, sitting on top of a man. In the dim light, her expression was seductive, her body moving joyfully, her face glistening with sweat. Everyone was dumbfounded. Holy cow, that man doesn't look like her husband. What's going on? Explosive, the CEO of the Johnson Group, is this wild? And doesn't that room also look like a hospital room? Victoria's face turned white as a sheet. She had no idea how I could have this video. She had specifically chosen the middle of the night, but she didn't know that after seeing those photos, I had installed a hidden, inward-facing camera on the door of Ethan's hospital room. Seeing her struggling to hide her panic, I added calmly, "The man lying down is Ethan Moore, from room 302, right below mine, isn't he?" The live stream chat exploded. This is solid proof of cheating, so her husband was telling the truth all along, only one floor apart. Isn't this basically fooling around with her lover right under her husband's nose? This is insane, the video continued to play. In the frame, Victoria suddenly leaned down and whispered in a strange tone, "Soon, Eth, soon we won't need his blood anymore." Enough, the screen went dark. Louise, her face a mask of complex emotions, had pulled the plug. There's no need to show anymore. Let's discuss this privately. Please, give Victoria some dignity. As for the terms, she glanced at the panic-stricken Victoria. Everything is negotiable. I turned to look. Victoria bit her lip and nodded, her face pale. Is that so? But I don't feel like negotiating anymore. If she had agreed to the divorce in the beginning, I might have considered our past and let it go. But from the moment she insisted I consume that blood ginseng, my heart turned to ice. Taking a stack of documents from Jack, I held them up and said flatly, "This is my blood analysis report. I have strong reason to believe that Victoria Johnson plotted to murder her husband, which ultimately led to my paralysis." It was like a thunderclap in the hallway. People were still reeling from the cheating scandal, and now this statement left them utterly stunned. Louise's face turned ashen, and she laughed out of sheer anger. "Sincere, there should be a limit to your embellishments. Victoria is the CEO of the Johnson Group. Even if she has moral failings, that's a matter of your marriage. But why would she try to murder a poor boy like you? For your assets?" I ignored Louise's mockery and replied coldly, "She wasn't after my assets. She was after my blood." In the video, Victoria had mentioned my blood. That, combined with her insistence on buying the blood ginseng, led me to a hypothesis. My blood was very useful. Because of this, I had Jack take a sample of my blood to a medical lab overseas. The results showed that I have the rare Rh null blood type, also known as golden blood, which fewer than 50 people in the world possess. At the same time, the lab came to another shocking conclusion. My blood contained metabolites of a certain toxin, indicating I had been poisoned in the past. This toxin is water-soluble and specifically attacks the nervous system. It was the true cause of my paralysis. The report says I have golden blood, and it also detected a paralyzing toxin in my system. If I remember correctly, in the period right before I was paralyzed, wasn't it you who suddenly decided to make me a glass of warm goodnight milk every night? I looked meaningfully at Victoria, who was nervously wringing her hands. "What your paralysis was," Director Helen gasped, covering her mouth. Her eyes filled with a mixture of shock and fury. She had raised me since I was 5, and now, knowing my condition was caused by someone's malicious act, she was about to explode with rage. I patted her hand reassuringly and continued with my theory. "But why would you want to paralyze me?" So, I looked up Ethan's overseas medical records. I stared at Victoria's panicked eyes with a half-smile. What a coincidence. It turns out Ethan has golden blood, too. Nonsense. Louise stood protectively in front of Victoria, her chest heaving with anger. "Just because they both have a rare blood type, you're saying Victoria deliberately paralyzed you? Are you insane? How can you connect two such absurd things? Why don't you go write a soap opera absurd?" I suddenly laughed. But reality is often more absurd than fiction. Looking at the still feigning calm Victoria, I suddenly blurted out, "All that blood drawn for my checkups was used for Ethan, wasn't it?" Victoria's face, hidden in the shadows, broke out in a cold sweat. "I found Ethan's attending physician. This is a recording he secretly made." I took out a recording pen and pressed play. Amidst the crackle of static, a man's voice emerged. "Ms. Johnson, the blood drawn from the checkups is limited. Mr. Moore's rare condition requires constant transfusions. At the current rate, he'll be lucky to survive the month." Victoria's voice followed without a moment's hesitation. "I'll figure something out. I'll get my husband admitted to your hospital. Once he's there, you'll draw blood under the guise of daily tests. Triple the dose." The moment the recording ended, Victoria waved her hands frantically, screaming, "That's fake! It's fake! It's AI generated! You can't believe it!" Director Helen's face was grim, her gaze like daggers on Victoria. "I always said Sincere seemed so weak after he got sick. It turns out you were stealing his blood every day. Who stole his blood?" Mr. Johnson snorted, striking his cane heavily on the floor. "You want to slander my daughter with a recording of dubious authenticity? I won't stand for it." Louise was equally incredulous. "You rat to fight for assets. You hired voice actors and blamed your own paralysis on Victoria. Victoria is sick right now, and you're here making a scene and agitating a patient. What are your real intentions? Our friends and family were divided. Some thought Victoria was ruthless. Others believed I was using unscrupulous means to get a bigger divorce settlement. Watching this chaotic scene, my heart felt as cold as ice. After we got married, I discovered a strange habit of Victoria's. She had an extraordinary obsession with health and would drag me for a full medical checkup every week. And every time, they would draw many vials of my blood. Whenever I questioned it, Victoria would coax me, asking me to indulge her little quirk. After I was paralyzed and admitted to the hospital, the blood draws became even more frequent and intense. Victoria told me she and the doctors were trying different treatment plans to help me stand again. I never doubted her. Not until the suspicion raised by the blood ginseng led me to Ethan's attending physician. Only then did I discover, to my astonishment, that he was the very same doctor who had recommended the bone marrow transplant for Victoria. Sick? A playful smile touched my lips. Your leukemia? That's probably fake too, isn't it? I am a puppeteer, and a skilled one at that. In ancient times, people like us were called puppet masters. After I was paralyzed, I tried countless methods to get back on my feet. All of them failed. In desperation, I used a secret art of the puppet masters and forged myself into a living puppet. I stood up. Countless splints of bamboo, ironwood, and steel rods supported my body, making me appear no different from an ordinary person. When she saw my miraculous recovery, a brilliant smile lit up Victoria's face. She even kissed me deeply, something she hadn't done in a long time. Looking back now, I realized that beneath her smile was a burning greed. Hearing my words, Victoria's tone suddenly softened, her eyes pleading. I really am sick. Perhaps there was a miscommunication between us that made you misunderstand. Whatever it is, can we please go home and talk about it? The live stream viewers, however, were getting restless. Whoa, Goddess Johnson is backing down. Don't tell me she was faking the illness? Cheating, paralyzing her husband, now being accused of stealing blood. Are all wealthy families this messed up? If this is true, this guy has been through hell. We demand the truth be revealed. I flatly rejected Victoria's suggestion. There's nothing left for you and me to talk about. Sincere Victoria suddenly screamed at me, her emotions overflowing. Do you really have to be so cruel? She searched my eyes for a trace of the old affection, but all she found was endless coldness. Under Victoria's despairing gaze, I pressed play on the second recording. It was the same man's voice, but this time it trembled as if he were swallowing nervously. Ms. Johnson, faking a leukemia diagnosis is already against regulations, and you want to do an excessive transplant on top of that. This is no joke. There are standard amounts for bone marrow transplants. There's really no need to use so much. Then came Victoria's cold voice, speaking words that sent a chill down the spine. The fact that he can stand again proves his bone marrow has special nerve-repairing capabilities. You don't need to worry about it. Just drain all of his marrow and transplant it all into ETH. You can report it as a medical accident. I'll give you $10 million and send your whole family to America. When the recording finished, the scene erupted into chaos. Mr. Johnson's face was livid. He slapped Victoria hard across the face. How could I have raised such a monster? You even plan to harvest a man's marrow. You've disgraced the entire Johnson family. The live-stream chat was also scrolling frantically. This is insane. This woman is truly vicious, using a person like a human blood bag, sacrificing her husband for her lover. This is making me fear marriage, and she acted so caring before, cooking and cleaning and giving massages. Turns out she was just maintaining her blood transfusion tool for her lover. Only Louise remained in disbelief, shaking her head and muttering, "Impossible. This is all just his side of the story. Victoria isn't like that. My friend isn't like that." Seeing this, I decided to add more fuel to the fire and give them proof they could see with their own eyes. To see if it's true or not, all we have to do is check if Ethan is in the operating room. With that, I kicked open the door to the operating room. It was empty. All the surgical equipment was there. but not a single person was in sight. The crowd that followed me in stared at each other, bewildered. Louise's eyes lit up, her confidence returning in a flash. She yelled at me, "See? See where's Ethan? You've been making this all up. You beast, everyone has been fooled by you. I'm going to sue you for malicious slander." I ignored her, carefully tapping and inspecting the walls. Suddenly I noticed one wall panel had a slight color difference from the others. I gave it a gentle push. The panel slid open. Inside was a small utility closet. A thin man was lying on a gurney. It was Ethan. Victoria, covering her face, followed me in. Seeing the scene before her, all the color drained from her face. My theory finally has its last piece. I turned to look at Victoria, my eyes filled with a deep chill. "You even hid the person. It seems you really were planning to let me die on the operating table today. To transplant all of my marrow into Ethan, the checkups were to steal my blood. Taking care of me was to ensure the quality of that blood. Buying me the blood ginseng was to nourish my marrow and improve the transplant's effectiveness. Victoria, in your eyes, was I a tool or a lover? The puppet master who controlled puppets ended up living like one himself, manipulated by a false love. The ironic truth was finally exposed to the light of day." Victoria opened her mouth as if she still wanted to defend herself, but I didn't want to hear it anymore. I dropped the final bombshell. "Ethan's attending physician has already turned himself in at the police station. Whatever you have to say, you can say it to the police." Victoria's legs gave out, and she collapsed to the floor. Beep, 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 a piercing alarm sounded from behind the crowd. A young nurse pushed through, shouting frantically at Victoria. "It's terrible. Ms. Johnson. Mr. Moore's vital signs are gone. He's dead." The last spark of light in her eyes extinguished. Victoria looked up, her eyes wild with madness. "You low-life cur, you pushed Eth to his death. Are you satisfied now? If I had known it would come to this, I should have just put you in a vegetative state." My face was as cold as ice. I spoke softly, "So, you never loved me. Marrying me was just a way to keep Ethan alive, wasn't it?" Seeing my serious expression, Victoria burst into a crazed laugh. "So what if it was? You're just a street performer, a nobody with a worthless life. How dare you compare yourself to Eth? As long as he could be well, I was willing to do anything, even become a devil." Louise hugged Victoria, tears streaming down her face, patting her shoulder desperately. "Victoria, how could you be so foolish? Was it worth it, for a man?" All my questions had been answered. I turned and walked toward the exit without a trace of regret. Outside the main doors, police officers were swarming in. 1 year later, I founded a tech company, patented my puppet-like support frame, and launched a line of consumer-grade exoskeletons, giving hope to countless paralyzed patients. I established a charitable foundation, regularly fundraising for the orphanage and providing the children with first-class living and learning facilities. Louise came to my door and offered a sincere apology. It was then I learned she suffered from PTSD due to her experiences on the battlefield. After giving me the signed divorce papers, she left for a remote monastery in the mountains to find inner peace. As for the Johnson Group, it was rocked by the scandal. Victoria was imprisoned and the stock plummeted. My former father-in-law was forced out of retirement, but he couldn't restore market confidence. The company eventually went bankrupt and was liquidated. Not long after, someone told me that Victoria had lost her mind in prison and was transferred to a mental hospital to serve her sentence. On the lawn, she would hold an imaginary needle, foolishly giving herself injections and blood transfusions. She loved with a mad passion. It's just a shame that person wasn't me. I let out the last breath of resentment. Life is like a dream, but in the end, you will find true love.